Woo, what's up? Hello, welcome to MageTalk, the Magento Enterprise podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
Woo, doggy.
The Magento Community Podcast. I'm Philip.
And I'm Kaylin.
And guess what?
And,
Security is dead. Pack it up. Let's go home. That's
pack it
it.
up. Go home.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to do. Turn off your internet browser and your webcam because
yeah, your webcam has been on for 5
safe.
solid years and you didn't even know it. Nothing's sacred.
Yeah.
Everything's broken.
It's all getting torn down.
That's the reality. Content security policy is dead. Did you know what CSP was, Kaylin?
I didn't. I did not. I jumped into that Twitter thread as if I knew what was being talked about. And is like I can sort of vaguely understand what's going on here, but no, I did not. I'm not gonna lie.
Let's do a yes no. What do you think that CSP is?
Perfect.
Explain to me what you think that CSP is.
So what I think CSP is, and I'm looking at the screenshot of the Sansec thing here with the code screenshot. What I assume it is that like some policy around what domains JavaScript will run off of by default, or whatever. So if I have pretty close.
You're pretty close. Yeah, that's exactly. And there's varying levels of stringency on that. That's exactly. That's pretty close. And
what do you know? I freaking nailed it right out of the gate.
Yeah. For whatever dumb reason, CSP is it's a moving target because stuff changes all the time, right? Like, JavaScript domains change all the time, depending on how you ratchet it, how tightly you ratchet down the permissions. Like 301 redirects to like forwards to other domains to handle that pass-through redirect might get thrown out. Those are all those are all valid sort of concerns. In running CSP, it's like a moving target. Well, there was a novel CSP workaround that's been discovered in that someone found a way to abuse, I believe, Google Tag Managers, the way that it writes and reads from, like they could use first-party JavaScript from your domain to effectively bypass CSP to run arbitrary code from Google's Tag Manager. And it's completely legitimate. Right.
Like from a Firebase.
And it's completely legitimate in the way that and basically anyway, content security policy is dead. So we have no control.
So then there was a thread with Sansec, I assume is Willem is replying there. And then James Etlin popped in and was asking if this is assuming that the default source or script source tags include star.google.com, which would essentially need to be set that way in order for basically any subdomain of Google to, in order for any subdomain of Google to be whitelisted, right? And so then basically I guess the recommended setup is that, and this is what James pointed out, is that you do not have star.google.com whitelisted, but it's that you have some other like more strict policy. But then like I asked Willem, I was like, so like how common is that? Because basically Willem's point was like, it's insanely common for it to be set up this way with the wild card that'll get you in trouble.
Correct.
And then he pulled up like a list. This is a cool site, publicwww.com, where you basically can run, like you can basically like grep a bunch of websites.
A literal bajillion. Mitchell Cowie in the chat saying, he just finished getting CSP onto his website, so that's fun. Sorry.
And so
Exercise in
basically,
futility, Mitchell.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, if you do set it up and then you do purpose, set it up with a more strict policy, then you're golden, basically. But Willem's point is like roughly 500 million websites do not have it set up this correct way, and like 14,000, roughly 15,000 do. So it's like, yeah, it's not technically dead, but for all intents and purposes, it's like sort of dead,
Yeah. So what I'm showing it on the screen right now. You can't see it. I'm actually showing the Sansec article about it and the announcement that the digital skimmer runs entirely in Google. Like it's cool. Hi Joseph. Welcome to the chat. This is a problem, and you have to sort of credit. I don't like if there's anything that we can be a little bit proud of in the Magento community is that the Mage cart is what popularized skimmers, and I think we should all be very proud of that. Yeah, I've lost your audio.
All of these,
yeah,
you lost my audio.
Oh yeah, you're there. You're just quiet.
Oh really? Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Is that normal?
That's
okay.
better. That's better. Well,
yeah,
you're never
like
normal, but
all of these as close to normal as humanly possible. Like all of these advanced all of these advanced hacking threats out of Russia. What's the term? Advanced. I can't remember. What's the term for a advanced security threat? They're all.
Kalen Jordan is an advanced security threat.
What's the word? Advanced persistent threat, APT. That's such a great.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's basically an advanced persistent threat is basically a stealthy computer network threat actor, typically a nation state or state sponsored group. So basically it's like you've got your script kiddies, working out of a basement. You've got your this is the high.
It's
up
the next level up. It's the next level up.
Yeah. Yeah. So all of these
Great.
advanced persistent threats in e-commerce security got their start in the Magento community. So we can have some pride around that. All right.
We're kingmakers. We're kingmakers. We've done our best to help the rest of the world of 0 days, prove out there and gain their chops. That's awesome.
Yeah. We've allowed to, what's the other phrase I'm looking for? Chew your teeth, sharpen your teeth, sharpen
chew your teeth. That's the episode title. Just chew your teeth. You know what's interesting is I love this is how this is the difference of the developer set from everybody else is basically James Zetlin pops in, a wild Zetlin appears in this Twitter thread and says, well, doesn't this assume that default source or script source includes star.google.com, and right. It's well, yeah, that's also, by the way, what Google recommends if you don't want to have an extremely bad time whitelisting literally everything. I don't know. What say you, Kalen? Is that it? Is there a problem with the developer mindset of saying, well, it's not broke on my machine? That's not the right analogy here.
I think that is. I think that's a pretty close to it. It's not broken on 14,000 machines, and maybe broken on half a bajillion.
Half a bajillion.
But according to you're right. It's according to the way it's theoretic, it's what's happening in the real world versus what's theoretically the way it's supposed to happen, I think is a scenario you can run into a lot. And Willem is very much, he builds these tools to find out what's happening in the real world. Okay, everybody should be on whatever version of Magento, and that's what people should be doing, right? But what are people actually doing? And that's what I love about what Willem does, and it's amazing. But I mean, I get now. is this kind I mean, like, so obviously if you host your own site, you're going to be vulnerable to this. If you're on a third party, if you're on a SaaS, would you be vulnerable to this or no? Because they would just probably across the
Well,
whole
I think
SaaS,
you
they would
manage
probably
content security policy on your own in like an HT access or in some sort of in some way. It's a header policy that you send along in header responses. So you manage it. I mean, it could be managed. Sure. I'm sure there are CSP management tools that exist that I'm not aware of. Max Chadwick is sort of the resident expert on CSP at Something Digital, someone we should probably bring in to answer questions like this. But, we don't do that sort of thing because we don't really value accuracy so much as, fear mongering, so to speak.
I liked Ben's terminology he came up with, which was time to get something wrong. Like he came up with a whole acronym for it.
I mean, if I love Ben and I know Ben loves us, but when you stand on a tall stage, you have a lot of people that pay attention, and you get something wrong every now and then, and you have a lot of people that can hear it and find out. Unfortunately, we get things wrong from time to time. I'd rather good thing that I'm not afraid of that. I'm pretty good at being wrong, right?
Speaking of getting things wrong from time to time, what's this whole Carly thing about, man? I'm seeing this all over the world.
What do you mean getting things wrong? What does that mean?
I'm seeing it on GQ.com.
Yeah.
What the heck is this thing, man? You're all over the
dude.
Like any good Twitter citizen, and like any good Twitizen, I have not actually read your brilliant long form think piece.
Oh, thank you.
Multiple think pieces you're like published in multiple places. And I've read the headlines. I've seen the acronym that you've created and like created into existence and like is being used all over the place. So like, give me the TLDR on this.
The TLDW. I'm going to turn your video off for 1 second because it's misbehaving, and then I'll turn it back on. All right,
Son of a gun.
It's not. I don't know if it's you. I think my kids are streaming 4K on like 75 different machines at the moment. Who knows? Yeah, that didn't fix it. Right. So maybe it is you. So Carly. So there was this idea that floated around. It's not a new idea. There was this. I forget where the origin was. There was an economics journal where there was a piece that was written in 2003 about an emerging consumer. And they gave it an acronym called Henry, which is high earner, not rich yet, is what it stood for. Mm-hmm. And this particular acronym caught on very recently, although it's been around for a long time. And the original creator of it, as an economist, sort of used it as a bridge to talk about, the buying preferences of a person who has a lot of disposable income. So 2PM and Webb Smith sort of popularized this with a bunch of pieces that they wrote last year. It caught on. A lot of people wrote a lot of pieces around Henry. And I felt like in the world that we sort of live in, like everybody wants to talk about luxury. Everybody wants to talk about these, people that buy Rolexes but also buy away luggage when they could afford something more premium than away. And I thought that was sort of interesting and novel. Man, your video gets worse and worse. It's just getting you look like you got smeared. You ever see that woman that tried to like fix a painting of Jesus, like a fresco, and it got like all mangled? That's what your video looks like right now.
This is actually timely because there's a lot of stuff going around in the news and on Twitter recently related to like pixelated images and like stuff like that.
I saw that too. I saw that too. This is very timely.
Yeah. So then there's your picture where you look like you got stabbed in the eye. You're
this pixelated one. It's like I look like this. It was like a lot of fun.
Yeah. The real stabby looking picture.
I'm gonna throw you out and then I'm gonna bring you back in. So I'll keep talking in the meantime. It'll be fine. We're going to be okay. While we're bringing Kaylin back. Okay, so Yeah, so this idea of Henry, and Henry, it's whether Henry is actually a thing or not, or Henry actually exists is neither here nor there. The thing that here's the Skype song. Hey, that's better. All right. Well, we'll have to do it again at some point, I'm sure. It just slowly gets worse over time. Whether Henry exists or not is neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. The fact that people talk about Henry is the thing that I think matters, because I think there's always a subset of people who have more money than they need and spend more money than they should. So I started thinking, like, what's the opposite of that? Like, what is the opposite of that person? And
So you've lost me already. That's how bad this is. So high earner, not rich yet.
Correct.
So they make good money, but they spend it all, basically.
They make
random nonsense.
Sure. That's fair. That's fair. I think it goes deeper than that, but let's leave it at that. That's good.
That is a proper TLDR. I don't know if you know what a TLDR is. If you've ever come across this.
I'll give you the TLDR on Carly, but it wouldn't make sense if I didn't set the table for you on Henry.
You're like, dude, the TLDR is literally just the acronym, right?
I got it. So Henry. To understand Carly, you had to sort of understand Henry and sort of why it matters. So for me, I started thinking about what is the opposite of that consumer. Somebody who has some money, but probably not money that they made themselves, or has money to spend, but the only reason they have money to spend is because they don't have real expenses yet, right? They're much younger. They haven't come through their professional career development yet. Or they're just getting started. They're probably in school or getting ready to go to, university. And I thought, man, wouldn't it be fitting if it's high earner, not rich yet is the acronym, then what about can't afford real life yet, right? This person doesn't have real life expenses. How do they purchase, or how do they think about?
It's a great acronym.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic acronym. Yeah.
So I wrote a piece in December for Future Commerce about this. It's like a 3,000 word, opus on this consumer, and it was inspired by seeing, kids lined up at the mall for the Crocs store to open to buy some Crocs.
I remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that. I remember that post. Yeah,
and that was sort of the start of our Generation Z research that we started at Future Commerce. We had a number of podcasts about it. I've done quite a few talks on it. In fact, I did a talk about Generation Z and Carly at Magento Connect, which was the Magento Association event that we did 2-3 weeks ago. I spoke on that session. Only 40 people came out of 1,000, so that was cool. But I feel like the thing that we need is to be thinking about less about there is a type of a person in our ecosystem, I think, who would value understanding how a consumer, like a potential customer, thinks and what they prize or value, so that they can create a site experience that is meaningful to them. And so Carly can't afford real life yet. We'll post it up in the show notes. I have an hour-long session I did for MA Connect that you can watch and read back and listen back. But we put out this piece. It was one small part of that was Carly. This piece was called 9 by 9, and it's a research report that we put out that really talks about like 9.
You're turning this into a webinar. You
wanted to know why I was in GQ. I'm telling you why I was in GQ.
Okay.
All right, you're bored already. Fine. Anyway, a report that we published. A report that we published got picked up by GQ and WWD, which is I thought was a wrestling channel, but it's actually a women's wear daily, and will be featured next week in Retail Touchpoints. And then I found out yesterday I was on BuzzFeed.
I saw that,
which was totally random. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's wild.
So yeah, it's making a little bit of a mark in the world.
Yeah, it's wild. So. Can't afford real life yet. It's like they have, like you're saying, they're in school, or maybe they have some money from their parents, kind of thing. Generation Z,
right?
And so, like, so you're saying, like, how can you design websites for them? Like what's an example?
Yeah.
Explain to me like I'm 5. Like, what's a website like UI pattern or something like that?
This is amazing. I think it's less about it can be about the design. I think that is part of it. I can actually
whatever.
Yeah. So I think at the core, it's like the products and the brand matters a whole lot. So you have to stand for something. It's not enough to just have, underwear. It's got to be like inclusive, gender neutral underwear. Like, it has to be,
Okay.
you have to have a sustainability angle. And I think that those are all things that are very important to this particular type of a shopper. And so the way that you, there was some interesting research that we performed at Something Digital, which we found that across all B2C sites that we had, if a customer in their decision-making process during like their purchase journey went through the about page, right? So they're considering to buy something. They went through the about page. They were 70% more likely to purchase again. So meaning,
that's interesting.
If you
like, they care about like the story of the.
If you found that you had a shared value system in going, like, you have things that you like, shared ideologies, shared value systems, like there's an overlap or an intersection of the things you care about as a person with the things that this brand says that they care about. That means that you are far more likely to purchase again if you purchase once. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, I think.
Yeah. Like this, that ties in a lot to like how I feel about like hey.com and like Basecamp, is like,
here we go again. But yes, you're right.
Here we go.
But you're correct. You're correct.
No, like that's like, for me, it's like there's something that I identify with about them, about the founders, or at least one of the founders, and like who they are, what they stand for.
Which one?
That I like, that I care about,
Right.
If that's not obvious, but
if I could paint
totally.
if I could paint like a picture, since I have the ability to show my screen, I from the slideshow that I did, I'm showing you can't see it. You'll have to watch on the YouTube, which will murder your bandwidth. So, but where
it's
millennials,
not the bandwidth. There's this weird audio thing where it takes over my. You know what I need to do is I need to just get a hard wire for my audio.
That would help, I think.
Headset,
I think that would help. I think it would.
It's such an annoying bug. Yeah, it's super weird.
Well, just to tie the knot on this so that we can stop talking about it, because I'm very excited that I was in GQ, and I'm very excited that I was in, on BuzzFeed. But nobody else cares, and that's fine.
It's amazing, dude.
Well, thank you.
It's amazing.
I appreciate that.
It's totally amazing.
I also appreciate that people kind of get sick of the constant, self-promotion. But I think that there's an interesting thing happening here.
No,
you're not going to be able to see.
No,
here we go.
I think
maybe we could see it better here. I don't know. Long story short, like there's like, if you were going to say millennials versus Gen Z, there's like millennials are idealists, Gen Z are realists. Right. So that's why we have cancel culture, is because millennials think everybody should fit to their ideals, and Generation Z is like, nah, I'm just going to do me, and you like whatever. And millennials like
Generation Z.
Yeah.
Generation Z is not behind all the cancel culture?
I don't think so.
I thought that was.
No, I don't think so. I think it's less
gives
about.
me hope for the future.
I think in reality, there's an undercurrent. So this is what our research is showing at Future Commerce. Like, now that we have a research arm, and doing broad consumer research, the things that we're finding is, is they have a very entrepreneurial spirit. They, while they love activism and they champion Greta Thunberg and they champion Black Lives Matter and they champion Malala Yousafzai, they also follow Gary Vee and Neil Patel, and they're like, I'm going to go get mine. Millennials, you were poor, and millennials, it's sort of like this competitive nature against the previous generation, which was disadvantaged by the 2008 economic downturn. They're like, I'm going to go get mine, and I'm going to be more successful than you because I have something to prove. And I think that current runs deep in like trying to be the anti-millennial. Millennials want to cancel you. Well, we're gonna find ways to try to bring you in under the tent, and I think we're seeing a bunch of clashes with that in a lot of culture at the moment. It's very telling that Friends, the TV show, and The Office are beloved by the under 15 set. 15 to 25 are the largest consumers of those two TV shows, and they're both very culturally inappropriate. They both existed and were created in a time.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Like we watched back The Office recently.
Yep.
And it was like, whoa! It was like you can't do this stuff
That show could
anymore,
never be
you know?
made today. Like the Friends could never be made today. And I think it also kind of harkens back to a time that they didn't really live in, where life was a little simpler and things were a little easier. Anyway, long story short, like I think it's less about, the hair. I have a fly in here. What the heck?
Dude, I think I had a fly in my place last week. We got a definitive
and you had
fly thing.
Someone was talking about your upper pecs. Like, were you doing some incline presses? I heard that the other day. That was pretty cool.
Oh yeah. I really don't intentionally do the video with the tank top on thing,
You don't? You mean you just accidentally trip and fall and the record button gets hit and...
Dude, here's the thing with video clips, man. When the inspiration strikes, you got to hit that record button, Sometimes you just have a friggin' tank top on. I don't know what to say. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah.
Your boy Alex gave me some props for that. That was cool.
Love Alex. It's been too long since I caught up with Alex. It's been a minute. I don't know.
Is he not doing the outreach for Future Commerce?
He got really heads down over at Best Worlds, and he was crushing it big time over there. And but we're all BFFs. We're all thick. We thick as thieves. We go back a long way.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. You're I don't know, man. It's a really interesting. It's just a very interesting time right now. There's a lot going on in the world, and
a lot going on. Man.
I find it really interesting. Everyone's talking about economic slowdown. By the way, I don't know if you're beginning to see it. I think you have sort of a leading indicator in your business of hiring, right? And
got that right.
E-commerce might be. I'm bullish on e-commerce right now, but I tend to wonder, like, people are going to spend money, right? They're not going to not spend money. You're going to buy groceries, right? Some people will buy a PS5, whether they should or could not afford it this year. They will buy an Xbox Series X. Like, people are going to spend money on things in 2020, regardless of what the economy looks like. I think the trick is how do you set the table, if so to speak, or like how do you make the environment favorable that they'll spend money with you, that they find it valuable to spend money with you on your company and your brand. That's the thing I want to figure out. Right? That's why I talk about the stuff I talk about. It's like I used to solve those problems with code, but I realized one day over series of moments, like and over a couple years, that not all problems can be solved with code. I think that if you're a developer, you might think that, but I don't believe that to be true.
Sellout, man. Corporate sellout. You ain't nothing but a corporate sellout.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah, like talk to me a little bit more about this. I thought that tweet caught my attention. I didn't think it caught my attention. It did catch my attention, where you were saying the primary benefit of the e-com agency space is being in the know about corporate retail strategy 12 to 18 months ahead of time. I thought flush that out. Let's double click on that.
Shut up.
Let's double click on that.
Double tap. You got to double tap that.
Double tap.
I mean,
this is the new format of the podcast, by the way. I ask you questions about your tweets, and then you take 17 minutes to respond to
This is why we have 3 live viewers now. That's the problem. You've completely nailed it.
Hey, we're gonna keep doing it until the people realize how amazing this content is.
I think it's great content. And we've stepped up our production game. I mean, come on, people. This is good stuff.
Yeah, we did.
I want to know, do people like this, like the bars? Do you like the bars? I have the bars on the top and bottom that like sort of add the brand in a little bit. I don't know. I kind of like the bars. Joseph, do you like the bars? Mitchell, do you like the bars?
I'm going to have a hard connection next time so I can actually see
so you can
the
see it
video
at the same time. Yeah, that would be nice.
Because I did get a brand new computer, so I have the I can actually use my browser now while live streaming.
All right, hold on. Let's double tap on that. What computer did you get?
So I got a Mac Mini. My MacBook my trusty MacBook Pro, which I had. It was a refurbished 2013, and I had it since 2014, about 6 years. Generated at least a couple million on that bad boy.
Yeah.
And so it was getting slow. It was heating up a lot, and I was thinking about getting a new computer, but I was like, it's fine, whatever. And then, like, what day was it? Like Saturday, it just died. It just wouldn't turn on anymore. And so I picked up a mini the next day, and I've been using it ever since. So it's
I wonder, and I wonder if there is a throttling that happens on the Mac Mini for energy or heat that causes the camera like the camera frame rate and the quality to drop.
So the bandwidth has been a little bit, like, I have a Google Mesh thing pretty close by, but I am outside, in my backyard in the shed.
Yeah.
So I've noticed the bandwidth can vary a little bit, but I don't know what that is. I might need to just get another mesh thing and put it closer, but a lot of times it's fine, but it does get low sometimes. I have noticed that a few times, not before I got the mini.
Right.
So I think that's what it is, but I'll have to figure that out for next week. Next week we're getting a new Google Mesh thingy and then a hard link on the thing. It's going to be lit,
new Google Mesh thingy and a hard link on the thing.
And a hard link on the thing.
A hard link on the thing. That's what I'm talking about.
It's gonna be lit. It's gonna. I saw a new word for in this progression of like lit, fire.
Yeah.
Which was flames.
It's flames. It's okay.
Is that the newest one? That's
it's
the newest
flames.
One,
you can also say that slaps. That's a thing that they say.
I've seen that.
That slaps. No. You can also say yeet, which is what I've.
Yeah. No, let's. That's enough. That's enough. You should have stopped at slaps. You went too far. I didn't do all that.
The agency space. Talking about the agency space. For all of the people that say they refuse to work on RFPs, when you get an RFP.
That's your competitive advantage, is working on RFPs.
Is having enough self-loathing and patience to go out and actually answer an RFP and go through that whole rigmarole. It takes. I think I might have responded to you, or I started to respond to you and lost the interest. But like having deal cycles for large builds for the kind of e-commerce that you see that people that win awards. Those things aren't built in 10 days. Sorry, Magento, and sorry, Andrea Ward.
You're still on this 10-day thing, man. That 10-day thing
I will never forgive them for
ago.
it. I will never forgive them. But the kind of sites that win awards, and like the kind of sites I think that change the language of e-commerce or create like new ways of engaging with customers are made, over time. And so, it might take 6 months just to win the build. It might take 2 months of just discovery and design. It might take 6 months to build it, and then another 2 or 3 months just to like get it stable. So we have, while shopping RFPs, while answering RFPs, from a corporation what their 24-month, like what they are going to be doing in 2 years. You know it.
Right.
You know what their plans are. You can see into the future. And in many ways, you can tell them, like you can answer them and tell them, this is what you should be trying to do with your time and effort and money. And so you can sort of predict the future. And so in the agency space, the only other folks who have their ear to the ground and that close to innovation are the folks funding it. So if it's not corporate innovation, like you're talking VC and private equity, are the ones that are putting money into, like they're the only ones who have the jump on the agency space on what they will be building towards or what they're going to be putting money into. It's a superpower. Being in agency space is a superpower.
Nice. I'm bored already of this topic.
All right,
God,
sorry.
This is.
Why are you doing this to me today? Mitchell Cowie says he's weirdly in love with slaps, and it resonates with him. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah. No, it's super cool.
No, it's not. You hate it.
I would,
And come up with your own. I keep teeing questions up for you, and then you're like, nah, I don't know.
yeah, I want to talk about homeschooling. Can we talk about homeschooling?
I do want to talk about homeschooling. Where did this come
So,
from, by the way?
so there's a company called Primer, which launched recently. It's like a homeschool with superpowers. It's basically a homeschooling like software. And the idea, it's really interesting. I saw it. It's like a Silicon Valley deal. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a unicorn probably. But where was I going with that?
Meaning $1 billion company.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think there was okay, here we go. So the founder, Ryan Delk, posted a tweet. They're working on some long form interviews with folks who were homeschooled and are now doing interesting work as adults. And they posted one of them with a really great looking illustration, like it looks like a really well done.
Yeah. It looks very good.
Yeah. And just like, it's just cool. Like everything they're doing just looks great. Like I think they're going to create a really transformative product for homeschooling. And I think that, homeschooling is kind of on this uptick, is kind of on this growth curve with all the COVID stuff and whatnot. And even before that, I think it was something that had been growing. We're a part of that. Like we're like one of those weird families that decided to homeschool. And I know you've talked about that a little bit in the past, and like you replied to this tweet, and you mentioned that you said your homeschooling journey left you with some emotional trauma that you eventually faced in your late 30s. I know you've talked about that a few times, about how whenever you talk about homeschooling, it's as a negative. Right? Like I noticed you've done that a few times, and I never really have double tapped on it because because I don't know, like I don't know, but I think it's we're talking about, and homeschooling is kind of more of a mainstream newsworthy topic these days because of what's happening in the world, and essentially almost everybody is doing some form of homeschooling,
and will be. And if I had to predict, will be, right? Distance learning will be a thing. We call it distance learning down here. That will be a thing that I think will be a mainstay or a part of education probably for 20 years. I think it's going to be hard to put that genie back in the bottle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a negative thing. I think for me it was. I would say that I'm successful despite having been homeschooled.
Right.
And it's funny because, you kind of make decisions. You make decisions we make decisions as a family, like thinking about, how we do things. I have an 8 and 9-year-old. We include them in conversations around, I don't know, all kinds of things. Like we help them but ultimately, I make the decision for my kid. And I think one of the things that was really difficult is early on, I decided, or we as a family had a conversation when I was in 5th grade to do homeschooling. And my parents sat us down and we made a decision as a family, but my parents had already made the decision, right? We got talked into it. And when I said I didn't like it and I wanted to change, it was no longer up to me. And it was like, well, you said that you would do this. And I felt like I resented that for the 5 years that we did homeschool. And my parents did not have the bandwidth. Life changed, finances changed, business got difficult. Both of my parents were, entrepreneurs, and, my mom was a baker. And they just weren't there and present enough to make it successful. And I effectively taught myself. And it wouldn't have been so bad had had the group that we were with that was accredited, that, was supposed to have put the stamp of approval on the things we were doing as for the state of Florida, had they not lost their accreditation, which null and voided my freshman and sophomore year of high school. So when I did eventually mainstream back in junior year, I had to retake all of my midterm and final exams for my freshman and sophomore year.
Oh God. That's
while
horrible.
I was in my junior year. And I wound up making a mad dash for my graduation date by taking summer school, summer night school. Now, it taught me hustle, and it taught me to like succeed despite, adversity. But is that the thing you want your 16 and 17-year-old to have crushing, like
Right.
world-ending anxiety over? Probably not.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to set your kids up for success. You don't want to.
Right.
Yeah. You totally. You don't want them to succeed in spite. It's so funny you use that word, that language, because I felt like probably my wife and I succeeded in spite of being in not the greatest public schools. Like lot of like craziness, like fights and shootings and things like that, and just not the greatest learning environment. Like you get into like the what are they called, the AP class, like you get into the advanced classes, and there's like a subset of the school that's like serious about education and stuff. But even then, there's only like a portion of your time in school where you're actually learning. Like the rest of the time is just nonsense,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think everybody has different experiences, and I think it's cool that you're like brutally honest about what it was for you. And I think that's one of the things I think we want to try to be sensitive to, is if there does come, like I was talking to my wife about a friend whose kids want to go to public school for high school. And I think, that's one of the things we got to be sensitive to, is if they do change their mind, maybe, you have your own belief on it, your own philosophy, and you might push them or try to nudge them. But there does have to come a point where if they do want to go a direction, you probably got to support that. Otherwise, like you're saying, there'll be a lot of resentment. And
it's going to be, listen,
stuff.
Everybody's situation is different. And I'm not saying my situation is everybody's situation. I had a bad experience with it. My sister, who, was in the same room as me doing homeschool for 5 years, she has a very different outlook on it. It's like her experience was very different, and she doesn't resent it, and she doesn't feel like, but she also wasn't, forced, she almost wasn't held back, 2 years, and, she had to be with her. I had to retake, sophomore biology with her. And that was a little humiliating, being a senior in her, sophomore class. Like I went through it. I had a very different experience, even though we kind of went through it together. And everybody has their own thing. I don't fault anybody for liking or wanting to do homeschool. And I think it can be really efficient. I do think that there's things that happen between the learning moments that are necessary for kids to develop. Like learning to interact with other people is learning, but it's not necessarily like planned syllabus, lesson plan learning. You learn social behavior, and that can also be a good and a bad thing. I just think that it's not just about the information being communicated. There's something deeper, and I'm really excited to see what Ryan builds over on Primer. I'm looking forward to it. I love this kind of content that sort of challenges my own points of view. I really want to be challenged in that way. And I'll say this ties into Magento in that I opened up.
They didn't think we could tie it in. We tied it in.
Watch this, baby. Do you remember you and I were sitting at Starbucks in Austin, Texas, and Sherry tweets me and says, "You're supposed to be on in 5 minutes."
Yep.
You remember that? And I think we had maybe been talking about some of this stuff when we were like hanging out that week, and at Mage Titans in 2016, I think 2017. It was 17, and I was the keynote speaker. And we walked back over, and I kind of just felt very strongly on the walk back over to the venue, I'm going to throw out my deck. Like, I'm just going to riff. I'm going to go up, and it's going to be a sermon. I'm going to talk about and open up like about the things that I'm sort of ashamed of. Is that like, I don't deserve to be a developer. I don't deserve to be a programmer. And I don't deserve anyone to like think highly of me because I don't have pedigree. Like I'm not I don't come from anywhere. Right.
Yeah. And then like one of your things in your lists of like failures would be like, and I was homeschooled.
Yeah.
And I would be like, that like what, like, why does it have to be a negative, you know? Like, and I
Well,
never communicated that, you know, to you like
yeah.
that, you know, but I get it. Like, it, you know, it was like for you,
It's
you know?
funny. Our community's full of folks. Um, I think there's it's full of folks that have been homeschooled.
Yeah.
There's a ton of them. I couldn't name
Yeah.
one of them right now, but I know they exist.
Pretty sure.
Uh, yeah, there's
Well,
a few.
there was a great post by Nathan Barry, who's the founder of ConvertKit,
Oh,
which is
really?
a wildly successful piece of software, and
Little bit successful.
a little $100 million business. And yeah, he wrote a post how homeschooling played a key role in building $100 million business, and it's cool. Like he had, you know, he's one of these people that had a great experience like getting homeschooled, and he just talks about like, you know, like the entrepreneurial aspects of it and whatnot. And yeah, like then I think they're homeschooling their 3 kids.
That's cool.
Half private school, half homeschool, whatever. But yeah, it's always it's neat. It's one of those things. It's neat to see examples of it because there is this narrative that like homeschooling is weird and people aren't people don't get socialized and stuff like that. And I'm sure there is a portion of the homeschooling community that is like that. But there's also like a lot of really cool people and for some reason it doesn't get surfaced up. I don't know exactly why. But and that's one of the things that made me think that series that Primer's doing, interviewing people that were homeschooled, is so cool because I think it's like it's like a gap in like content.
I think it is. I think you're right, and I think that we'll be more open to these. We'll be more open to a cultural shift in like how children are taught and the environment in which they're taught due to the current situation with COVID. Like that is going to have to shift. It's going to have to change. I don't think that anybody like it is June 24th and we have, you know, the highest daily cases of coronavirus in the state of Florida than we have ever had. And we are 6 weeks away from reopening schools. Right? How?
Wow.
I don't think that we haven't really decided how. We don't even have a plan. There's no plan. The school board hasn't put out a plan in Palm Beach County. We're going to have to adapt. And part of that is homeschool. I think it's a thing that we're all just going to have to and it might look different. Not everybody can stay home with their kids forever. That is going to be a harsh reality. And I know a number of friends who are talking about like sharing days and like sending their kids over to someone else's house for, you know, like doing more at home or like putting, you know, a few families together to share the load around. That, and I think that's a very human thing. Like we should band together for like, that's a thing that we'll do really well.
And I think that when you get into homeschooling, that's one of the first things you realize is you got to be involved in some kind of a group. Like we're in a co-op where you get together on a weekly basis, and there's lots of different types of those organizations that you can join in groups and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, in my opinion, that's a necessary component of homeschooling is to be in some sort of a group where you can.
Well, it's accountability, right? It helps.
There's accountability. There's friendship, socializing. Like you have to have all those components. It's just, in my opinion, homeschooling is all about being able to create all those and sort of. It's almost like in a way like building an open source project. Like you get to pick what you're going to use for caching. You get to pick what you're going to use for.
Wow, he brought it together. He did it.
I brought it together. You get to pick your back end cache. You know.
Yeah, I'm making the stank face. That's good.
Yeah, because you got to get all those components in there, and sometimes you might struggle with some of them, right? You might have a site that just has like no caching whatsoever, and you're like, this isn't working so well. Like we need, you know, like you're not getting them enough socializing or whatever. Like you got to get that in there, get some play dates in the rotation and stuff. So, yeah,
that's great. Tell me a little bit about your experience. You said you went to. Were you yourself homeschooled at any point?
No, you've asked me that like I think 10 times.
I'm sorry. So like, I get
No, it's
confused
fine.
because you've chosen
I
to
know.
do it for your kids. So
I know. I know.
yeah.
It makes
All right.
sense.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we went to public. I went to
Yeah.
public school.
You just said that, which
I just said that
yeah.
literally. And yeah, I mean, it was, it is what it is. Like, it was cool. Like, but
yeah.
it's like I
You
got in a
went
few
to the
fights and stuff.
you went to the
Yeah.
high school from Dangerous Minds. Do you
Yeah,
remember that
pretty much. Pretty
the
much,
Michelle
yeah.
Pfeiffer where she
Coolio. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
By the way, those
No,
movies have not aged well. Where it's like the white lady from the city comes in to teach everybody how to
right. The white savior.
Yeah.
Right.
My gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
but
crazy.
Coolio had a killer song in that. Remember that?
Oh yeah. I've been
Gangsta's Paradise.
blasting it. Yeah, Gangsta's Paradise. Even my mama thinks that my mind is gone, but how's that go?
I don't know, but we just got demonetized on YouTube, so it's
there
great.
You go.
I love
There
it. I love it. All that monetization. Like we had we were making so much money up until that moment.
Dude, we were making bags of money.
I'm being told that they don't like the color blocks. I feel like I need to bring back the color blocks just to remind people that they're watching MageTalk.
Bring them back, dude.
Bring them back. I don't know. They don't like the color blocks.
What's up with these H-1B visas?
Tell me about this, because I know the story, but I feel like I kind of barely know it.
I honestly I've just completely headline read. I saw a bunch of people tweeting about how the H-1B visas were banned, I guess, temporarily to the end of the year, through the end of the year, or something like that. And everybody's like, this is crazy. Like, we need more H-1Bs, not less. And I definitely see that. I mean, it's like if somebody's hiring and, it's like visas are such a mess. Like, I think even if you do go the H-1B visa route, it's like a lottery.
Yeah.
So you don't it's such a mess. Like if you could make it easier to hire that way, it would be huge for people. But here's my thing, dude. Here's my perspective shift on it, right? Because I see a lot of companies that just hire people remotely, right, overseas or whatever.
Sure, right.
So, okay, so people can't come as H-1Bs. Like, just what if people just hire them remote? Problem solved. What say you?
Yeah, mic drop. I think that's probably what's going to happen. We've had that situation at Something Digital where we've sponsored H1 for folks that were here for school that transitioned to professional employment, and then in the political climate the last 3 years, it wasn't them getting a renewal just wasn't going to happen, and we kept them on. It's like part of the way that we've gotten good at being a remote friendly company, because I was the first remote hire at Something Digital and everybody else was not remote. But the way that we've gotten better at being a remote company is by having the relationships of people that had worked in the office continue those relationships when they've left the physical building. And that's been part of the thing that's helped us transplant culture into remote work. And I'm glad that we did that well before we had to, where, businesses just like are suddenly remote. I think that that's really tough to think, but you're right. Listen, like, I don't know, this all kind of hits on a political narrative, I think, where it's, whether you agree with it or not, the idea of immigration and immigration is a key talking point of our current administration. Trade is a key talking point of a little bit. So I think that those talking points, like those things are they all kind of fit into that narrative. In fact, there was a conversation recently about slowdown of testing for COVID-19, and that whole conversation has sparked some action from the European Union to prevent travel from the United States to the European Union based on our testing and our numbers and our methodologies around that. I feel like that fits the political narrative. It's like, let's double down on that because that fits the political Yeah, that is the politics of the moment, is to be self-sustaining and not having to lean on the outside. Ben, I think you're a little late here. He says your camera quality is less than stellar. Ben, for some reason it keeps degrading, and we dump Kalen out and then we bring him back and it looks awesome, and then it gets worse over time. I don't know why.
Yeah, I noticed my bandwidth went back up. It's like 15 megs right now. So
you want me to dump you one more time and bring you back? We could do that.
We're pretty much at the end of the show here. So.
Ben, rewind to the very beginning, and for at least 2 minutes, it looks awesome.
It's going to be so much better next week, y'all. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be. You're
going to go hardwired.
Nice.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Well, this is great. You want to take us home?
Yeah. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and make sure to leave a review on.
They've never done that. They've never done it.
Make sure to leave a review, and if you listen, if you haven't left a review yet, you got to get on to Apple Podcasts, leave a review, and let people know what they're missing out on, and like and subscribe, and check. By the way, check out hey.com because it's a fantastic email software. I'm enjoying it. You really should check it out. You're gonna like it. Trust me. And also, don't try to get an H-1B visa. It's not going to work out this week. Okay, you're gonna have to wait.
That's the thing we're going to end with.
To wait on that.
I love it.
That's what we're ending on. All right.
This is great. Thank you so much for watching on the live stream, and thank you for listening to MageTalk.
Ba-choom.